You know, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, American Legion National Commander Bill Oxford, he's continued to lead the nation's largest veterans organization as many American Legion posts closed their homes and they postponed events due to the coronavirus concerns. But as a result of the cancellation of the organization's national convention in 2020, Oxford's term in office was extended for another year, and he became the longest-serving national commander in the 102-year history of the American Legion. And it's my pleasure to have him on my show today, Commander Bill Oxley. Nice to have you again, sir.
Thanks for the invitation, the opportunity, Mark. I'd always like to talk about American Legion business.
Yeah, well, congratulations on your term. I mean, you're it. You're the longest. Well, I can call you Bill. We're old friends. So, Bill, while the nature and manner of your service, may have changed, the American Legion has never stopped assisting veterans in our communities and our country during these challenging times, correct?
Absolutely correct. We faced many shortcomings, many cancellations, things we were not able to do last year. But even in spite of that, the American Legion stood tall. They were conducting blood drives, food drives, benefit fairs, doing a lot of the business, and in some cases even provide help and facilities for the VA to do some of their business. But we're still here, still just as valuable and relevant as we've always been.
My word, supporting first responders, healthcare workers, people in need right throughout the pandemic. You know, folks, despite the attention given to coronavirus, Commander Oxford wants to ensure time-honored traditions continue. He is, in fact, encouraging all patriotic Americans to wear a red poppy on May 28th, which is National Poppy Day. You probably know that, but that's correct, Bill. And for that matter, why are poppies associated with veterans?
Well, that's a great question, and if I could take and just talk about history a little bit.
Sure.
In World War I, in the battlefields in Europe, poppies were part of the battlefield. They grew wild, and as the battles transpired, the people who survived those battles in Europe started looking upon the poppy as a living memorial to the people who made the supreme sacrifice. So the poppy became part of the American Legion in 1920 as the memorial flower. And in 1924, we adopted a program to distribute poppies. The American Legion family looks upon that as part of our duties to distribute poppies for National Poppy Day this year, May 28th, and in and around Memorial Day for wear to memorialize those people who lost their lives in service to this country.
My word. And for what it's worth, Bill, it's the same in Australia. We have poppies on Anzac Day for our, Remembrance Day. And I sold them as a kid.
Sir.
I sold them as a kid, and I tell you what, they're a big deal. Now, in the light of coronavirus, will the American Legion still be able to observe Memorial Day?
Absolutely, 100%. We observed Memorial Day last year, even though it was restricted. It's just one of those holidays we can't forget. But we're 100% behind the services this year, and with the vaccines, with social distancing, with masks, and all of those things, we expect posts and communities across the country to hold those Memorial Day services.
All right. Well, listen, Bill, I've got some other questions for you, if you don't mind. What exactly is 100 Miles for Hope?
Well, the 100 Miles for Hope Challenge is a program we created last year during the height of the pandemic, and it was an invitation to ask members of the Legion family to get outside, out from under the pandemic, to get some exercise, get some fresh air, get some exercise, maybe get a little bit healthier, maybe lose some weight. But it was just a way to get people outside to get some exercise, and we also wanted to raise some money for our Veterans and Children's Foundation. Our foundation, that's what pays for a lot of the programs that we have. So the 100 Miles for Hope Challenge, it was a win-win to get members of the family outside and also raise some money for our Veterans and Children's Foundation.
No, that's fantastic. But now let me ask you this one. Why is the number 48 significant to the American Legion?
Well, a few months ago, we signed a sponsorship deal with the Chip Ganassi Racing Team in the Indy Racing Car Series. Part of that sponsorship agreement was Jimmy Johnson, who is a 7-time NASCAR champion, was going to be one of our drivers. Jimmy drove number 48 in his 7 NASCAR championships. So when he came to the Indy Racing League, he brought the 48 with him. And we're extremely happy and proud and glad that Jimmy is part of our sponsorship deal, along with past Indy 500 winner Tony Kanaan. But they're outstanding ambassadors for the American Legion, and we just are looking for a way to expand the Legion brand, the Legion visibility. This gives us a way to do that.
Yeah, okay, now it makes sense. So let's go a little political here. There's a lot of stuff going on overseas, and, I'm going to ask you, why shouldn't U.S. troops remain in Afghanistan and Iraq?
Well, the American Legion totally supports eradicating terrorism. Our original intent was to stop terrorism, but we did not intend to rebuild entire nations. We provided more than enough support for countries to build their own militaries and infrastructures, but it's time that those American men and women come back to the United States. We've got men and women still fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq who were born after 9/11. So it's time to end those forever wars and bring those service people home.
Commander Bill Oxford, James W. Bill Oxford, tell us about your buddy check program.
Well, the Buddy Check program is another one of those programs we started just a few years ago. And I know many of your listeners would be familiar with the term battle buddies. Mm-hmm. Well, our Buddy Check program is just a continuation of that effort that we learned in the military, checking on your comrades. It's started as simply calling a fellow veteran, but we've expanded that to look at family, relatives, friends, neighbors, anybody in your community that might be in need of help. And that's the question we ask: how can we help? We just want to spread the message. Hey, we're here. We want to help. We can help. Tell us what we can do to make your life easier, or if there's anything you need, we're here to help. So the Buddy Check's been extremely successful, and we continue that even today.
All right, so let's go to the Hill. What are some of the issues that you personally are hoping to be addressed by Congress and the current administration?
Well, I think veteran suicide is a primary number one target that we have. A veteran suicide is a travesty, and we need to make sure we do every single thing we can to eliminate those suicides. But there are so many reasons that somebody might consider suicide. I mean, it might be medical, it might be physical, it might be homelessness, it might be financial, it might be personal issues. But we've got to make sure the VA is out there to provide the mental health assistance that a veteran might need if they're contemplating those kind of things.
Well, you've been in long enough now. I was going to say, Bill, you've been in long enough now to have enough administrations promise you a lot of things. You're right, because, I mean, you work your butt off to try and get things passed. The past president, the current president. Have you got faith in the current one to get done what you want?
Well, let me say this. We had a great relationship with the previous administration, the previous Congress, and the previous VA secretary. We are working diligently to develop those same relationships with the current administration, the current VA secretary, and the current members of Congress. We're making progress, and we continue to address those issues.
That's good. Who can join the American Legion, Bill? What are some of the things that Legionnaires do?
Well, up until last year, the American Legion was a wartime veterans organization. Last year, we convinced Congress to change the eligibility requirements. Now, any veteran who served on active duty with an honorable discharge since December the 7th, 1941, is eligible to join the organization. If you're not a veteran, we also have the Sons of the American Legion, which is male descendants of veterans. And we also have the American Legion Auxiliary, which is open to male and female spouses of veterans. But those organizations are out there, and they are all involved in our programs, and that's Veterans Strengthening America, and many programs that we've got and we take part in. I mean, American Legion Baseball, Boys State, our rhetorical contest, scouting, junior shooting, ROTC, veterans advocacy, volunteering at the VA, community service. All of those things is just a little bit about what we do and who we are.
Yeah, you're a very busy organization. I don't know how you keep up with it all, Bill, to be honest with you. Veterans and their families, participation in the American Legion 100 Miles for Hope campaign. That's a beauty. Encouraging Americans to be vaccinated against COVID-19, providing transition assistance to military members and their families separating from the service. That's a big one. And, of course, congressional passage and executive enactment of the Pay Our Coast Guard Act. Tell us about that again.
Well, as most of your listeners are aware, the Coast Guard works and belongs to Homeland Security. Last year during the government shutdown, there was a period of time where they didn't get paid. So we are encouraging Congress to make sure in the event of another government shutdown that those Coast Guard members get paid. To talk to that particular point, last year during the government shutdown, the American Legion paid out $1 million to young Coast Guard families that were in need of financial assistance during the government shutdown. But that's just one of the things we do, take care of America's veterans and our
That's
active
fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I mean, I don't think people realize just how much you've got your fingers in, Bill, and what you do, to be honest. What about the forever wars by urging Congress to repeal or replace the outdated, post 9/11 authorizations for use of military force, the AUMFs, and to properly resource the tools of diplomacy? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, those authorizations belong to Congress, so we just encourage Congress to take advantage of their authority. We're in favor of ending the forever wars, but if there is a need for military force, Congress should and does have the authority to address those issues as they come up.
The harmful effects that toxic exposures, recognizing this to open, air burn pits, jet fuel, other environmental hazards. They've had, for years, generations of veterans. How do you get around that one?
Well, we all know, and we've heard a lot about, things like Agent Orange from Vietnam, and that still continues to be an issue. Mm-hmm. But today's veterans are facing a separate set of things that they have been exposed to. And you mentioned burn pits, firefighting foam, radiation, and many other substances that no humans should ever be near. And a good example is the contaminated water at Camp Lejeune. Mm-hmm. That impacts not just Marines, but their military families. So we need to make sure that Congress recognizes the fact that these exposures happen. We need to figure out what the medical treatment is and make sure the military or the VA is able to provide those medical services. But and one of the things that we are just learning about, some of those exposures can be genetically passed down to children and future children. So that needs to be part of the discussion and the equation as we move forward.
Oh, does it ever? That is not good news at all. Look, last but not least, because we're winding up, but passage of constitutional amendment that would allow Congress to protect the U.S. flag from desecration.
Well, as you know, the American Legion was instrumental in the passage of the flag code going back many, many years. We support, we endorse, and promote that constitutional amendment to pass protection of the flag. So desecration of the flag is just not something we just don't like the sound of that when we do support that constitutional amendment.
Yeah, it's horrible to think of the battles and God knows what, and who could, do that to the flag. Well, the American Legion, ladies and gentlemen, is the nation's largest veteran service organization. Nearly 2 million members at about 12,600 posts worldwide. And they're involved in community-based support in many ways, and we'd appreciate if you could support them. And I guess, Bill, www.legion.org is probably a good place to start.
That's an excellent place to start. If you don't find your information there, start at your local Legion post. They're posted across the country in almost every community in every town.
So I'm going to ask you, Commander Bill, what is the American Legion's motto?
right now we are veterans strengthening America, and we'll continue to do that and be that as we move forward.
Hooah. Good stuff. Thanks, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you again. I always enjoy it. And ladies and gentlemen, on the Mark Bishop Show, the American Legion National Commander, James W. Bill Oxford. Take care, sir. We'll talk again.
Mark, thanks. Thanks for the invitation, the opportunity.
You're most welcome, sir. Goodbye.